Well, hello there, everyone. Here to talk to you about right here is the vomit mat. The coloring activity right here, as you see right here, is I went ahead and picked a name. It's saying random, like talking about what vomit mat it is, and basically talking about right here is about the study about vomit. And if most of us have gotten sick before, which I'm sure quite a few of us have, that talking about besides like the symptoms other than like what you calls like if it's a upset stomach, nausea or diarrhea or anything like that. But knowing about is like talking about is a study about vomit. It is, and this idea came with the fact about is like to do a coloring based on things that made you embarrassing, especially if you're going to be out in the community. It is if you're going to be out shopping somewhere or somewhere like that, maybe in school. And a lot of times if you were to go to school not feeling very well, that I think it's happened to me a couple of times to where that I would go to school and then I would not be feeling very well during most of the day. And I can remember that I think a couple of times that there was some kids at my school, of course, that had gotten sick, over something. I think it was either the fact that they ate quite a few. Well, I remember one student that I can remember, don't know their name, but on the other hand too, that knowing about that they went to school one time and they must have had a lot of chocolate, for breakfast or something like that. But I can remember that they wound up getting sick over it, and then a couple of times that they said if there's a kid that gets sick, of course, in the classroom, that there's like what you call like a janitor in the building, to where that they would call the janitor up and have him mop clean up the mess it was. But anyway, that you have it to where that a couple of times that I think kids gotten sick on the bus too. But knowing about is talking about the study about vomit. And anybody probably think about also known as like what you call like throw up. It's like talking about anybody probably thinking about if you've been sick before, that knowing about the type of things that more likely that may not fit your appetite, such as what you call like stuff that more likely that that you eat and then you wind up losing it. It is, but that you wind up vomiting it up and stuff. But other than that, knowing about that embarrassing times, it's like basically this whole activity basically talks about it's like embarrassing moments. It is that if I were to let's just say if I were to vomit after eating something. I think once or twice I would even vomit after I had eaten some soup it was. And knowing about that after I vomited it was, I can remember for about 10 years I can remember that I'm like, well, I don't want to. I felt like I was gonna maybe a couple times I felt like I was gonna maybe throw up, but and then a couple of times I was like, well, I think it's just a feeling though. It's just like what you call like the, inside the nerves it was. But on the other hand, that I can remember that being like, well, there's a bathroom just right over there in case if I need to go in there and take care, in case if I get sick it was. And I can remember, anybody probably think about that if you can ever remember getting car sick, anybody probably think about that if you were on a road trip it was, and then I ever gotten maybe car sick it was, and then had to ask the driver to pull over it was. And but knowing about that basically the story about that if you were to actually vomit in front of a few people. It was like if it was like at a family reunion or maybe a gathering or something like that, that more likely that you may feel real nauseated, and then from there, and then you would wind up losing, like throwing up for whatever that you ate, for breakfast, earlier or something like that. But I can remember that whenever the last time I vomited, of course, it was at the hospital. It was, whenever I was recovering from surgery, it was that I can remember something that I had. I think it was medication that they were giving me or something like that. That wind up, going. It's like that. Be able to clean out my system, whichever it was. That it caused me to lose some of the chemicals that they were giving me. It was, or it may have been something that I ate earlier or something like that. Any type of acidy, any type of acid inside my stomach, or whatever, whichever it was that was causing me to vomit. And I can remember the nurses there had like what you call like a tub that they would hold right up to your mouth, to catch all the vomit, that you were losing and stuff. And anybody more likely think about whenever you vomit, it is like talking about is like from how it tastes though, that a lot of times like you really just think about you just want to go into the bathroom and then you'll wash your face and stuff like that. So. But other than that, like talking about like what you call from children's Tylenol. Children's Tylenol. And I could probably tell anybody here that, for children's Tylenol is that, you say for children's, say for medicine, for medicine that usually that most nurses will give you that they, for taking care of, anything that's that was not over 400 or so milligrams it was, but anyway, but talking about with the sick, the sick feeling, and anybody can maybe think about that a couple of times whenever I would get sick, a couple of times, it's like the sick feeling is knowing about that between I don't know, between find out that you had poison ivy. If you had poison ivy on your face or whatever you call it, if you go to school or somewhere where you something that maybe makes you feel embarrassed, it's like so far as talk about you say embarrassment. It is. It's like talking about you say for embarrass. And for embarrassment, it was as talking about is like the type of feeling for I guess I can maybe put your on confidence feeling for unconfidence. And on the other hand too, that knowing about anybody probably thinking about that, it's like go on stories about talking about, it's like for your symptoms, it's if it's a headache or if it's nausea or whatever, anything that you ate earlier that morning, it's making you feel like a the flu bug. A few people will probably think about it. It's like the flu bug is another way that more likely anybody would probably describe it. It is it's like with the flu bug. But anyway, but talking about right here is like say besides the symptoms is knowing about the stories though, that with the story from what I can remember from whenever I would it's like people probably think about it goes like say it starts say from the mouth right here. You got right here is the mouth, and go ahead and draw right here is the tongue. And anybody more likely think about that you got right here is the mouth, and with the tongue and it just what you call kind of like a sneeze. If most of us are familiar, like whenever you sneeze, that whatever that's in your nose, of course, that would just come out, and it just kind of happens just like all of a sudden. It's like all of a sudden. But other than that, like talking about the things that just happen all of a sudden, it is. And I could probably say that anybody could probably think about between burping. Anybody would probably think about that. If you maybe feel embarrassed, maybe if you get a bloody nose, anybody probably think about that you were singing and dancing maybe with a few friends of yours, and maybe hanging out with some friends of yours, and all of a sudden you wind up getting a nosebleed. Anybody could probably think about it. I could probably tell anybody here that a couple times I have gotten nosebleeds before. It was a couple times it was nosebleeds, and then from there, from there, and then after that, and then it could have been like what you call like maybe a rash on your face or something like that. But other than that, is like that knowing about with me though, that I could probably think about that. With the bloody nose, a lot of times that, especially on graduation, I can remember being at my graduation. It's like ceremony. I can remember that if my nose gets dry enough, it's going to start bleeding. It was, and nobody probably think about the type of Band-Aid to where it can help control any of this. I talk about the number of times it's happened before, anybody probably think about is there really such thing as like what you call is like a type of band-aid to where that it's like a medicine, a type of medicine to where you can take to where that you want to have control over for whatever symptoms that happen, such as a bloody nose or maybe a rash on your face or anything like that. And the most embarrassing things I can remember that happened, of course, was one of them, of course, was vomiting. And anybody could probably think about with vomit, though, that with whenever you vomit, I guess in front of a few people, it is that a lot of times that they say stuff like, well, oh my gosh, what happened? You all right? Oh, you don't get that on me. Don't get it on me. And I could probably tell anybody that if anything that any type of embarrassing moments that's happened to me, it could have been maybe that you accidentally spilt juice on your shirt or whatever you call it, or it could have been something related to any type of food products or anything like that. But knowing about that anybody probably thinking about kind of reminds me that those commercials about Outback Steakhouse. It is Outback Steakhouse is like no rules, just right. It is, but anyway, if you'll be going out to dinner, though, that I can remember a couple times that go out to dinner, and I would go to dinner a couple times with the cold, with the runny nose, and I can remember that I asked the waitress there for some extra tissues because it was like that. Yep, whenever you have a nose drip, and it could have been allergy season, whichever it is, but a runny nose, that if you would have a runny nose, and then ask the waitress for extra tissues, and she would give it to you, but and that reminds me of one of those movies also, to where that waitresses and stuff like that, if they provide any type of Tylenol, any type of for headaches and stuff like that, I think back in the old days. That if they used to do that, if you stopped at a restaurant, it was, and then they would be like, well, I got a headache, can you bring me out some Tylenol? It is, and more likely that they'll maybe bring out some Tylenol. But I cannot remember a time for whenever they would do that, and I could probably say that with anybody, you could probably think about with like if you were to like cut yourself by accident, if it was anything related to the fact about that anything related to if you gotten a paper cut on something there at the table, that they may have a few band-aids that for customers for them to use, a few band-aids and stuff. But so far as like any other first aid kits, it was that knowing about that, if you were to vomit, and this reminds me of a story, of course, from whenever I used to clean over there at McDonald's, where I used to work at. Is that I can remember that there were kids that would get sick over what they ate. If it was chicken nuggets, it was, and knowing about that they would it would not settle in their stomach, and then they would wind up vomiting up. And anybody could probably think about it, whenever they would get my attention and say that we need a cleanup, if it would have happened like in places like Walmart or Target or any other type of retail store, then more likely you probably think about that there's the mess, and there's like, do you think you'll be able to handle that? Do you think you'll be able to handle a pile of puke? Do you think you'll be able to handle, all that vomit? It is like, well. The way I think about it, I don't know. I'm just talking, but I guess between vomit and of course maybe handling maybe a dead body, or maybe handling the fact about that anybody probably think about it's like if you're used to cleaning bathrooms and stuff like that. But any other type of job that more likely you probably think about is like it's not what you call it's like one of your least favorite jobs, of course. But on the other hand, too, that knowing about, like, somebody's got to do it. And if you were to have kids one of these days, anybody probably think about it, if you were to have kids, and more likely that if they were to get sick over something, it is, and more likely that it's like something you got try try to take care of, it is, and may not be what you want to do, and I could probably tell anybody that that knowing about between it's like cleaning up vomit it is, and maybe dealing with vomiting and stuff, and anybody probably think about after you enjoyed like what you call like that slice of cheese pizza it was, and that knowing about the fact about oh well like I don't feel so well or anything like that, and but other than that, like talk about it's like with the stories right there. But other than that, is talk about with vomit, man. Is talk about my work of explaining about the part of embarrassing part. Of course, anybody could probably think about the embarrassing thing. Of course, is more likely I could probably think about is maybe if I were to drool on my shirt, maybe in front of 100 people, whatever it is, maybe in front of 1,000 people. Anybody probably thinking about anybody can hear my voice and knowing about exactly what are you talking about? Like, oh, what are you talking about? Other than that, like talking about right here is you see the vomit mat. It's like talking about as a medical school. It's like talking about. It's like what you call is like the embarrassing moments. Is knowing about what do we really learn about these type of moments. Is knowing about the fact about really that the best way to know is like if you're okay, like talking about like about the safety. Anybody probably think about it. It's like well as long as you're alright. It's like talking about anybody probably think about it. I remember whenever I would get sick a couple of times, it's like something embarrassing that happened to me. It was is knowing about I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. Like I'm fine. But other than that, I talk about it's like the safety and talking about it's like the vomit mat coloring activity.